Good morning. This is Al Paul, one of the support analysts, and I'm very pleased to have you along today. We're going to do a quick look at WalkIn Scheduler for SchoolLogic. So we had a little trouble with our video capture last week, and we are trying our video capture again. For our demonstrations today, we're going to be running the latest, greatest version of SchoolLogic, which is 4.1.6, in front of database 2.2.363. And hey, a little side note here to my friends running SchoolLogic. SchoolLogic and TeacherLogic should work in any of the modern browsers: Safari, Firefox, Chrome, Internet Explorer. Myself, I tend to use IE, and you'll see me running today in IE 11. To be totally honest, I got blindsided by that. I ran too many Windows updates without checking what they really were, and my machine catapulted from IE 9 to IE 11 without me realizing it. You'd expect somebody in the tech industry to pay a little more attention, wouldn't you? The only reason I bring this up is we've seen some abnormalities in IE 11, particularly in regards to reports and our report manager. So if you think something's goofy in this area, it's a technical term, you know, and you're running IE 11 or even IE 10, you may have to adjust some settings called compatibility view settings. Let's look at this. Okay, for instance, if you mouse over one of these guys and he doesn't drop down, you know it's time to go to compatibility view settings. And where we're going to go is we go to Tools, and we pick compatibility view settings, and then we add the URL that your data is on into this box. Okay? Now, I will tell you up front, there are two things I don't like about this. Number one, that I have to do it at all. And number two, there seems to be only one way to get IE to actually store these settings. You have to turn off the preference to delete your browsing history upon close. So if you go here, Internet Options, I personally always ran with this clicked, so I could delete these temporary items every time I close my browser. Well, if you do that, you lose the compatibility view stuff. So, and you'd have to then re-engage the compatibility settings every time you open SchoolLogic. That's kind of a pain. So, you know, go back to the Tools menu, choose the compatibility view settings. If I had my druthers, I'd be running IE 9. But this is just one of what may be several digressions today. I appreciate your patience, but we're trying to get some good information out to you. Most of our time today, we will be investing our time in and around this form, which of course is WalkIn Scheduler. It's where most SchoolLogic users either create an entire schedule for a student, perhaps a new student, or they change a student's schedule, perhaps filling in holes in the student's schedule. And frankly, I will get you out of here in under an hour today. Usually I'm trying to cram to get into my 60 minutes, but we should be good today. We're going to do a little overview here of WalkIn Scheduler. We are going to add a course to a student. We're going to add a class. We're going to use this cool feature in Schedule that allows us to get the software to do the work and put one student's schedule together from scratch for us. We're going to use the matrix view of WalkIn Scheduler, which allows us to view holes, fill in holes. We're going to leave WalkIn Scheduler at the very end. We're going to talk a little bit about global enrollment and global transfer. And what better place to start than with a look at WalkIn Scheduler. Let's find ourselves any one of these students really, but let's go over to the 11th graders because they're kind of waiting on us to show up. And I want Samuel Ammon. Okay? Now what do we got here in WalkIn Scheduler? Well, across the top we see credits earned, credits pending, and credits possible. This last number is simply the first two numbers added together. Note that on the left here, my display says all. Well, here we are in second semester at this school, which, by the way, is a real school. We've just run it through our data mixer. These are actual students, actual courses, actual schedules. But the names of the students, the names of the schools, and the names of the teachers have been changed to protect the innocent, or the guilty, just so you know. As I was saying, it's second term. We've already completed term 1 classes, and we've already moved them to history. So, let's change the display choice to current, and then we will see that that cleans this form up considerably. And I like to order by term and template, because many people will name their templates in a manner that essentially makes this the time of day. Okay? In other words, generally, but not always, ordering by this, you'll get the classes in time of day order. Notice that all the statuses now are current. We are looking only here at term 2 classes. Well, except for these top 2, which say all terms. That's because those are year-long classes. The remaining classes below that specifically meet in second term. Now, just a minute ago, I cleaned this up by going away from all. I'll show you what my other choice was. It was completed withdrawn. This is Samuel's schedule from term 1, and notice that these courses are all complete. They moved to history. Well, the out date of the course was January 18, and sometime between January 18 and February 18, I moved those to history. So, let's talk about adding courses for a second. We're going to take 11th grader Caden Abraham. As you can see, he's got no schedule at all. Perhaps a new student to us. I'm going to click on Add Course. And the courses you see here, by the way, are determined by low grade and high grade in the class setup, course setup. All of these courses you see here are open to 11th graders. And I want Accounting S2. I want Advanced Metal and Fabrication. I want Algebra 2B. I want Chemistry B. I want English 10. Oh, English 10. We're having a little issue there on the old display. So I've got Chemistry B. Thanks for your patience there. I've got English 10B. I've got Geometry B. Where's Geometry? Here it is. And I need Social Problems B. There we go. Excellent. Now, this window comes up, and it's given me some choices here. I could select an individual section of any one of these courses. Now, I'm not going to select an individual section because I want the computer to do the work. Notice also, as it happens, it just happens the way these are displayed up here. Most of these courses on the top only have one section. Whereas toward the middle of this display, and it's got nothing to do with where you are in the display, it's how many classes you have. Notice the number of sections is larger. Okay? So, it doesn't take an advanced degree in differential calculus to figure out. It will be easier for the computer or for you to schedule the courses which have more sections, because those are more flexible. I can get Caden into those classes easier. Notice I could also specify term if I wanted to, but in this case all of these courses are term 2. Now visualize this at the beginning of the school year, and then you might want to specify, for instance, accounting is taken first term and advanced accounting is taken second term. Today, no such worries. And I can also specify my classes, because these are courses and I'm saying which individual sections of these do I want. I can specify them by credits. Now, if that seems a little odd to you, remember that some courses offer a range of credits. This is more true in Canada than in the States. But any course that offers a range of credits, not all students in the course receive the same number of credits. For instance, work experience. Suppose Caden is a student who's out at an internship in the work world 10 hours a week. Well, maybe you give him 5 credits. While another student is at her internship maybe 5 hours a week, maybe you give her 2.5 credits. It's also true that in Canada, it's not uncommon to have classes worth a range of credits, and the students actually sign up by credit. They'll say, I want the 10 credit version of curling, not the 5 credit version. So we're going to click select, and this puts the classes, these are still actually courses to be honest with you, puts the courses into our main display. Notice that their schedule status type is unscheduled. I believe the software refers to these as pre-scheduled right now. I'm going to click on schedule. The software attempts to honor all of the requests I made. Now in this example, there were no scheduling conflicts. It's almost like I planned it that way. If you like what you see, click submit. That changes the matrix display. It brings us back. If there were conflicting classes, we would see them now. It's essentially saying, do you really want to do this? I'm going to click submit a second time, and Caden is now scheduled. Caden got everything he asked for because I planned it that way. Okay. Back at the ranch, all of the classes now have a status of current. You just scheduled a student in 7 classes. Now see what we did there? We picked courses. We left it up to the system to decide which classes. And then it went about scheduling in such a manner that it fit them all in. Cool, eh? Now, here's a fact I picked up just last week while preparing this webinar. When the algorithm is trying to figure out which section to schedule a student into, all other things being equal, the system will pick the class with the most open seats first. Okay, now, adding classes works essentially the same way, except instead of the machine picking the sections in order to maximize successful course requests, you pick the sections manually, or you and the machine work together on that section selection. Let me show you. We're going to open Lorraine Acosta's. She's got an empty schedule. We're going to start out Lorraine with art culture, and we're going to schedule it manually. There is only one section of this course, and I'm going to make it the anchor for Lorraine's schedule. So I am going to pick add class this time. I'm going to pick art culture right here. I'm going to say, yep, that's the one I want, select it. It's unscheduled. I'm going to say schedule it. It shows me where it is. I say that's great. And boom, my good friend Lorraine is now scheduled into art culture. Now, Lorraine also wants chemistry and biology. Each of those courses have multiple sections. We are going to get the system to suggest to us where those might fit best in Lorraine's schedule. Even though SchoolLogic will make suggestions to us, you and I, and by that I mean me, will get the final decision. So, add class. This time I'm going to click add course. Did add class the first time when I knew specifically which section I wanted. Here I'm going to go to biology S2, which is the same thing as biology B, and I'm going to pick chemistry. Okay, great. Now, same screen we saw before, right? Notice biology has multiple sections. Notice chemistry has multiple sections. I do not want to pick them. Okay? I want the computer to pick them. Now, on the other hand, if you're a counselor and you've been given some kind of mandate, or request. Perhaps a certain teacher doesn't want this student. You could come in here and pick a different teacher's section manually. Don't tell your parents, you could do the same thing for them. If a parent doesn't want a certain chemistry teacher for her daughter, you could come in and pick a different section. I won't tell the parents, if you won't, that you have that ability to do that. I'm going to click select. Here are my unscheduled chem, unscheduled biology, and I'm going to click schedule. Now, it shows this to us sort of on approval, right? It's saying, do you want chemistry here? Do you want biology here? Okay, check this out. If I click next, it shows me biology in a different place. In fact, I can keep clicking next, and what I'm seeing is the computer always leaving art culture where it is. It's moving biology and chemistry. It's giving me an opportunity to place those in different places within the kid's schedule. And, by the way, if you go far enough, you click next long enough, you get to this. No further schedules possible. So, the system, because I said add course, it let me continue to go in there and continue to click, and it gave me different opportunities on where I could put biology and chemistry. And if I would have picked one of them a little sooner than I did, I could have gotten them scheduled in here. One of the great things about doing live demonstrations is you get nice little error messages like this sometimes. But the fact of the matter is that add course business allows me to go in there, and as long as I see next and previous down on the lower left, I can keep clicking until I find a scheduling scenario that suits my needs and makes me happy. Now, if I had wanted to, instead of letting the system choose which class of these last two courses, I could have, of course, clicked on Add Class, and I could have chosen specific sections myself, just so you know. Okay, so far we added courses, we added classes. We had the machine do for the work for us. We discussed doing the work ourselves. We manually scheduled one here, Art Culture. We did that work ourselves. So what else can we do from this main window of Walk-in Scheduler? Do you know on the bottom on the left you can click on View Schedule? Let's go pick a little busier schedule here. Cadence. I can click on View Schedule. Now, this is a view-only screen, but it's nice because it gives you day 1, day 2. This school that we're watching here happens to have a 2-day relative day schedule. And it gives you a nice visual of how things line up in Cadence Schedule. If I click Class List, I'm back at my main window. Now, I can also choose Print Schedule. And one of two things happens when you pick that. The one choice is what you see here. The schedule actually comes up. Now, sometimes it appears to some operators as if nothing happens, and that's because they did not set up in advance what I did, which is I set up in advance how do I want this schedule to print. And notice I got some unusual things here. I got the student's economically disadvantaged status, and I also got locker number, locker combination. Let's say that those 3 pieces of information I do not want. Let's get rid of the kid's schedule. Now, I said the reason that worked for me right off the bat is because I set it up in advance. What most operators don't know right off the top is that you don't set up this print schedule in this window. In order to set up your choices, you have to go to Scheduling, you have to pick Schedule Reports, and you have to pick Student Schedule. This is, after all, a student schedule. And I'm going to just go in here and I'm going to just pick one kid. I'm going to pick my buddy Caden, because I don't want to misclick someplace down here and end up printing out 69 schedules. Now, here are all my choices. And I'm going to say I don't really want the student locker number, I don't really want the locker combination, and I really don't want to print my kid's lunch status on his schedule. Because you know what happens to printed schedules? They get lost. And you don't want other young people seeing all that information. So I'm going to just click preview here because it's not good enough to just make the choices. You need to print one kid back at that student schedule at this page. Now, having done that, I can go into WalkIn Scheduler and I can pick Caden, or I can pick somebody else. Let's pick Samuel here. And I can say print schedule, and boom, it will print. And oh, by the way, it will print without the lockers information, which was over here, and without that additional information, which was student lunch. So, now, you might wonder, why did I not just print everybody's schedule from back here? Because let's imagine you're the counselor, okay? You've got 10 kids lined up outside your office. You're making schedules changes for all of them. WalkIn Scheduler is the best display to do that. And then I can print Caden or Samuel's schedule right from here before Samuel leaves my room. So right here I've made the changes. I can click print schedule. I don't have to go to that other location. The other location is nice over here if I'm going to print multiple schedules at once. But just to print onesie-twosie because the kids are in my office, this is a pretty good screen to do that from. Now, little water break. Thank you for your patience. In our previous example, we created a kid's schedule from scratch. Suppose you only have to fill 1 or 2 holes in a student's schedule. What do we do then? Well, let's look at Erin Amon. Let's go look at, and we see here by term and template and all that business. Let's just look at her current classes. B1, B2, B3. Okay, she's got all sorts of good things going on here. Looks like she's filled in all of hers. But what if Erin comes to you and she says she wants to withdraw from medical terminology? Of course, she'd like that period to remain empty, but you know that's not going to happen. You're going to have to plug that hole in your schedule. So, how do we do this? First, we're going to find medical terminology up here, and I clicked on it, and I'm going to give this an out date of yesterday, and I'm going to give her a completion status. I'm going to say she withdrew from that class, because that's really what she did here. And I'm going to go ahead and click submit. Okay, now notice that we've got, if I come in here and I say just show me the withdrawn ones, okay? Here's my medical terminology class. Notice that the out date is 2/17, and notice that she's withdrawn from it, okay? So that all worked pretty nicely. Now, that leaves us with an issue. She has a hole in her schedule. Now, obviously she created this hole, but other students will come to you with similar symptom. The symptom is, hey, I got this hole in my schedule. What are we going to do about it? Well, here's the really cool thing about the matrix schedule view. That's the name of this form, and this is, I think, like the coolest form in the whole package. I really like this form because it's going to allow me to do this. I'm going to just click on the hour of day, and boom, it brings up only the classes that are offered that hour of the day. By the way, my recollection is it brings up all of them, meaning classes that this kid might not even qualify for, but it's, you know, getting to be third down here, and we're worried about how are we going to fill the kid's schedule. Now, I picked that hour, and I'm going to give her, she was in medical terminology, right? She wanted to get out of that. Let's give her geometry. Okay, so I'm going to pick geometry. I'm going to say add class, and it shows me, because geometry is highlighted here, where geometry would show up in the schedule, which is where I expect because I clicked here, right? And this is a double block class, just like personal finance and all these other guys. That's why I clicked here and I got it to fill in both places. Okay, I like that. I'm going to click submit, and that is now scheduled into my student. Geometry S2, or if you like the matrix view like I do, there it is. Okay? And in my schedule, my scenario, right, I just filled a hole in this girl's schedule. I'm going to click print schedule. I'm going to hand it to her when she leaves my office, and boom, move on to my next student. So that ability to click schedule and then click on the hour of the day and see only what's offered in that hour of the day, I just think that is so cool, and it definitely allows you to fill those holes in kids' schedules. So to plug that hole, we went to WalkIn Scheduler, we clicked schedule, and that brought up my favorite matrix view. Well, let's go back to that matrix view with my buddy Dustin Davidson. And it turns out that Mr. Davidson is a 12th grader. So I'll choose the 12th graders. I like this view by grades because it minimizes the number of students I have here. I don't have tons and tons of kids. Let's go to Davidson. Let's go to schedule. Okay, now remember back when I pick AP Calculus, on my other kid, it wasn't AP Calculus, it was biology, but it showed up blue here. Well, look at this. It's showing up both blue and red. Red, by the way, is conflict. Blue is cool, red is conflict. Okay? Now, AP Calculus is a double block class. It meets in both the 11:30 and the 12:15 time frames. Notice it's blue on the first half and red in the second half. That's because the scheduling operator inserted the PE class, this is PE TS Challenge, into Dustin's schedule in the second half of this double block. PE meets at 12:15 and only for this 1 hour. This answers a question, by the way, that we often get. Does SchoolLogic allow for you to schedule despite a conflict? The answer is yes, but only manually. The system would not have done this for us. Now, let's see how you and I can do this manually. Let's pick on 12th grader Abby Dalton. And we're going to go to schedule, and we're going to see that she has that same PE class. Okay? So, I'm going to go up here, and you know what? I was editing her a little earlier. I expected that to be up there. It's not. Let's go to 11:30. We're going to pick AP Calc. We're going to say Add Class. Now, as soon as I do that, it says, hey, this is a conflict. PE is already scheduled. It's in. And AP Calculus is in the bullpen, right here, so to speak. It's a conflict. Now, with AP Calculus highlighted up here, I'm going to click Add Class. And it says, well, really? Which class do you want? Well, I want that AP Calculus section. Okay. I'm going to click Submit. I'm going to come back, and look, it did what I wanted to do. It put AP Calculus in the top, and it says, hey, you got a conflict here. So, interestingly enough, by the way, PE is now the conflict. When we started this little activity, when PE was safe here, and I just said, hey, I'm thinking about adding AP Calc, at that point, AP Calc was the conflict. Now PE is a conflict. So apparently, this is one of those times in life when the last shall be first, because the last was AP Calc. Now, in the real world, why would you leave a schedule like this? Because the kid is so bright in calculus, she can afford to miss the second half of every class in order to go to PE? Probably not. But I'll tell you, you can fix this conflict from right here, right on my favorite matrix window. I'm going to click on PE on the top on the left. Here it is. Okay. Once I click on that guy, I'm going to go down here. I'm going to say Remove Class. Are you sure you want to remove that class? Yeah. Notice AP Calc jumped in here. Now, by the way, this isn't really official until I click Submit, because you know how SchoolLogic is. You got to click Submit almost every time. Boom. AP Calc no longer shows up in red. Why? Because I got rid of the Phi-Ed class. Okay? Simple. But don't forget to click Submit there at the end. So that's one way to remove a class from within the matrix window. Just showed that to you. That works well as long as you don't care about grades or attendance, which I'll address in a minute. In the matrix view, this guy, I can highlight a class, and I can come down here and I can say remove class. You reply to in the affirmative here, and the class is gone. Now, another way, back at the main window of WalkIn Scheduler, is I could just click on this big red X on the right hand side, and it says, do I want to delete English 12? I'm going to say yes. Now, both of those methods I just showed you remove grades and remove attendance from the deleted class if you take attendance by class. Most schools, most of the time, don't like that. Okay? Because what I just showed you was deleting a student without a trace. As an aside, I will tell you that we at SchoolLogic have been deleting things without a trace since long before the United States government started using drone aircraft to remove bad guys without a trace. But like I mentioned, most schools, most of the time, want there to be a trace. Now, let's look at how you might accomplish that trace. We can choose any student, and we're going to show just the current classes because it makes this display nicer. Click on the class you want to remove, let's say social problems, and this nice window opens, right? We need to add an out date. I always choose yesterday, okay? And here, well, here's the deal. If you add either a class to a kid's schedule or you add a kid to your database, either one of those two adds, the software expects it's the beginning of the day. So if I add a student to any class, I can take attendance for him today. If I remove a class from a kid or I remove a kid from the database, the software expects end of the day. That's why you can add a kid and remove a kid on the same day. So I just picked an out date of yesterday because it's to prove it's really happened, if you will, okay, rather than today, because it won't show up as happening right away. Completion status. This usually comes down to, in most schools, either completed or withdrawn. Okay? Now that's not always true, as this list of 8 different statuses suggests, but usually it's completed versus withdrawn. By the way, either completed or withdrawn will lock in the fact the kid actually was in this class, as opposed to the student leaving without a trace. You will have an out date to refer back to. You got this completion status. And depending upon the choices you make when you print your report cards, this class will have social problems, will have its own line on the report card, and grades will print. Again, depending upon choices you make later. But you create that opportunity for yourself by using this method to withdraw a student. By the way, if the student earns a grade in a report period marked Move to History, this class will move. If other information on this tab is important to you, most of this is related to provincial or state government reporting. If you need that, fill it in. Otherwise, just click Submit on the bottom on the right. And if I come back here and I say completed withdrawn, here's the class I just completed, 2/17/2014. It's completed. That's social problems. Okay? If we use the big red X at right, we get nothing. We lose all attendance, we lose all grades, all history that the kid was in there. So this display sort of is effectively the class history of your student. Kind of what it is. And that's kind of the end of what I'm going to talk about in terms of WalkIn Scheduler, that particular form. I said earlier we're going to stray just a little bit. I want to stray up here to scheduling, and I want to stray to global enrollment. And we're going to, for the sake of example, only work with our buddy Thomas Biggs. We could work with multiple students, but let's not do that for the sake of this example. Now I'm going to take today's date, I'm going to accept that as my in date, and for my low grade I'm going to make it be 12. Thomas is, by the way, a 12th grader. Okay? You probably figured that since it says 12 up here and I picked the kid. But low grade, high grade is going to be 12. Why? Because this lookup list is sensitive to that choice I just made. Okay? When I say select classes, I am now getting only classes that are open to 12th graders. Not classes exclusively open to 12th graders, but classes where the low grade, because if you were exclusively open to 12th grade, back in classes, your low grade would be 12 and your high grade would be 12. What this means is I've got classes whose grade range includes 12. Any class where the low grade is 12 or lower, and any class where the high grade is 12 or higher, if I had higher. Notice, for instance, that we could put Thomas into English 10 or English 12. See? Here's English 10, here's English 12. Notice you don't see English 9. That's because if we went to English 9 in class setup and schedule, we would see the low grade there is 9 and the high grade is 9, effectively preventing seniors from getting in. So I'm going to select just a couple classes here. And I'm going to click select. And now those specific sections are available to me right here. Now, I'm only picking one kid. I'm only picking 3 sections because I want to speed up the example. But think about how this would work if you were an elementary or a middle school and you had a set series of classes to schedule, perhaps by homeroom. I could come in here, I could pick one homeroom, I could pick all the kids in it, and I could give them section 1 of everything they need to be in. I could come back and I could say, give me homeroom 2, give me just the kids from homeroom 2, and I could pre-select for them the second section of all these classes. Click submit, I'm off to the races. Okay? When I click submit, by the way, it is going to show me conflicts between the new classes I'm trying to pick and stuff already going on in his schedule. But it shows me more conflicts than that. It will show me things like the effective date is not within the class term date. And it will tell you what SchoolLogic is going to do about that. It will show you what you and I traditionally think of as conflicts, meaning, hey, he's already in a class that hour, but it also shows you other stuff too. Now if I go ahead and click print, I'm going to actually print this to paper. But I'm going to say OK. Now, saying OK simply acknowledged the previous conflicts. Nothing happened yet. And now the computer comes and says, look at this. If you put this kid into math, the effective date is not within the class term date. That's exactly what I said would happen, isn't it? Now, you could print this to paper because maybe you need to get a principal or somebody to sign off on it. If you click no, the whole process comes to a complete screeching halt. Nothing happens. If you click yes, the computer will execute your desires even if there are conflicts. By the way, if there's a conflict in a time of day, like we saw a little bit earlier where we said AP Calc and Phi Ed, if you accept the conflict, the computer gives the kid both classes. That's up for you to figure out how you're going to get them to actually attend both classes. Just so you know. That brings us to one of the most interesting parts of this, which is global transfer. We get a lot of questions on this. In SchoolLogic, if you can meet precisely the right conditions, and I'll explain what those are, this is a really cool feature. I know, for instance, I have schools out there this year who are rethinking how they schedule next year in order to be able to use this feature. Let's first of all go back to our 11th graders, just for fun. And we're going to select just a couple students. But again, we could select more if we wanted to. In fact, let's go find Bernadine In fact, let me show you Bernadine's schedule once. Let's go back to WalkIn Scheduler. And I'm going to go here to Bernadine. And I'm going to just show you what her current schedule is. Okay, B1 through B8. Okay, this is just as a starting point. You don't personally have to do this. I just want you to know that U.S. History, Semester 2, we're going to edit that. She's currently in Section 5. We're going to put Bernadine in Section 2. We must use a course which has multiple classes or sections, since the coolest feature of global transfer will only work between two sections of the same course. Okay, that's my setup. Two sections of the same course. I'm going to go to global transfer. I'm going to pick my buddy Bernadine, and I'm going to say I want her to transfer out of U.S. History way at the bottom. Let's speed this up here, Al. ST U.S. History. I want her out of Section 5. There it is. And I want to transfer her into, by the way, notice how this white screen is empty here. Just want you to see that. Keep that in mind. Section 2. Notice that as soon as Section 2 fell in here, I got a new choice. Transfer grade information. Okay? This is one of the cool features I've been yapping about. I get this choice to transfer grade information. Now, there are a couple of reasons I got that choice. Number one, these are two sections of the same course. Now let's take a step back from the software, okay? Look away from the screen for a minute and think about the bigger picture. Whether or not these two sections are taught by the same teacher, you'd expect the material covered to be pretty much the same. So it makes a certain amount of sense from that perspective to allow you to transfer the grade if you desire. It's not like you're trying to transfer a grade from basic math to algebra. Those are separate courses, and we would expect that they cover very different materials. In this case, here, we're working with two sections of the same course. Now, look back at the screen, back at the software aspect of it. The other reason SchoolLogic gave me this choice to transfer grades is the two sections are defined exactly the same way in terms of report periods. Without looking, I can tell you that both courses will go to report card at quarter 3, both courses will go to report card at quarter 4, and both are marked move to history for quarter 4. Okay, and I just, used the word courses, and I should have used the word classes. Both classes are marked that way. Now, even though these, so it will allow you to move grades. Why? Because the reporting and the scheduling part of it is set up identically. When do I move stuff to report periods? When do I move stuff to history? It's set up identically. You could not, for instance, move the grades from semester 1 U.S. History to semester 2 U.S. History. Even though they would be two sections of the same course, they might be taught by the same teacher, and in each week of each section, he may very well cover the same materials, create the same assignments, and grade exactly the same way. Still, SchoolLogic won't allow you to transfer the grades semi-automatically like this because the report period definitions are not identical. Having said all of that, you could still use this transfer command to move the student, but you'd have to go into his first semester U.S. History grades, write down the report period grades on paper, then come over here, make the transfer, and then manually enter those grades into his new section. Maybe you would move his first quarter grade into third quarter, and then let him attend the fourth quarter, earn that grade live. You could do something like that, but you'd have to do it manually. Now, I must tell you that where you see transfer grade information here on this form, there could be another possibility: transfer attendance information. For SchoolLogic to give you that option, you would have to be transferring your student or students, more than one, certainly within the rules, not only between two sections of the same course, They must be scheduled identically in your timetable, which pretty much means they have to be scheduled in the same hour. Now, if you're a really small operation, you might listen to that, roll your eyes, and go, that's never going to happen in our school. Perhaps not. But in some of our larger schools, I could see having 2 sections of a popular class, let's say English 9, offered in the same hour. Okay? As long as you can transfer period attendance between 2 classes, as long as those classes are 2 sections of the same course and are scheduled identically. Okay, most people, most of the time, use this transfer command between different sections of the same course because they get SchoolLogic to transfer grades and or attendance. But I must tell you, this command will also work between different courses, but neither grades nor attendance would transfer. Because of that, many operators will withdraw Melissa from class number 1 and manually enroll her in class number 2 because they want that record, and they're not going to get the grades or attendance to transfer anyway. On the other hand, if you had 16 kids to withdraw from Tiddlywinks and all 16 wanted to enroll in kayaking and you didn't care about moving attendance or grading, global transfer would look pretty good to you. So, when I talked earlier that I had some schools changing how they're going to schedule next year, they're considering having one course and then having sections of that one course which are different levels of difficulty, like this. Rather than having entry-level diesel mechanics, journeyman diesel mechanics, and advanced diesel mechanics, 3 different courses there, they're considering having one course called diesel mechanics, and then essentially they would have a section open to entry-level students, maybe even a couple sections. They have a section open to middle-of-the-road students, and a section open to advanced students. Now, the reason they would do that is it would allow grades and attendance, if they had enough instructors to offer all 3 sections in the same hour, okay, to transfer when students move between the 3 sections. Now, that example isn't for everybody. Your state or province might get in your way. Government might say those have to be separate courses. Well, okay, but in the right environment, such a scenario might just work, and it would be pretty slick. Now, let me digress here for another moment before we wrap this up. As soon as we start talking about transferring grades, people will inevitably start talking about teacher logic. So, let me address that. Global transfer moves period grades, and it moves them in SchoolLogic. Now, it's true that once you have, let's say, the quarter 3 grade in here in SchoolLogic, you can suck it back into teacher logic. So you could then make TLXE calculate, say, a final grade based on that 3rd quarter period grade, and then whatever grades Melissa earns in 4th quarter in the assignments in her new class in TLXE. But the grades you cannot transfer are any grades lower than the period grade level in TLXE. Global transfer is not going to move all of the assignment grades from one TLXE class to another TLXE class, just so you know. And here's my final point about global transfer. When you run this, it transfers the student from the old section to the new section, and it does it without a trace. When you are done, you will have no way to know that Melissa used to be in section 5. It will look, if you transfer her between 2 sections of the same course and transfer her grades, it will look like she earned all of her grades in the new class. You will not counting assignment grades, you will only see one line on the report card, and that line will be the new class. Say you have 4 quarters in your schedule and you transferred grades, it will look like all 4 report period grades were earned in the new course. Okay? If you do that, you transfer attendance, it will look like all of the attendance accrued in the new course. So this is very different from manually withdrawing or completing a student in one course and then enrolling her in the new one. If you withdraw her from course number 1, you retain the attendance and grades from it. And you'll get 2 lines on your report card, one for the old class, one for the new class. But if you use global transfer, my friend here, and you transfer grades, you will get 1 line on the report card. Now, the more you know about all these processes, the better you can choose which tool best fits your needs. So, let's review what we've done. We've talked about adding a course. We talked about adding a class. We did the schedule business where we let the software choose which classes. We picked the courses we wanted the kid in, Caden, and the software picked the classes for us. That was nice. We used the matrix view to view a kid's schedule by time of day. We used it to fill holes in the kid's schedule by time of day. Remember, if you just click on the hour, boom, it shows you only the classes offered in that section. That's pretty cool. We looked a little bit at global transfer, and we looked at our friend right here, global. This is global transfer. We also looked at global enrollment. Okay? So, I want your headwinds to be minimal. I want your trails to be smooth. I hope we've given you a little more information to keep you out of the ditch, keep you on the trails. If you wish to review this presentation or share it with a coworker, hey, you're already looking at it on YouTube. This is where you're going to send your coworker. You're going to send them to community.schoollogic.com. And beautiful. They'll be able to look at the same thing you have, and we're going to spread the knowledge a little bit more. Thanks for coming out today. I really hope you found this helpful. I hope you have a terrific afternoon or whatever time of day it is in your time zone. Thanks so much. Goodbye.